2006 World University Softball Championship. Softball is a very popular sport in the United States that organized the first edition of this World University Championship. The town of Plant City, headquarters of the International Softball Federation (ISF), was an ideal place for this premiere. The American team brilliantly carried the final over Chinese Taipei. A lot of women playing at Plant City had been at the Olympic Games in Athens in 2004, which goes to show the excellent level reached by this university event, which, everyone agreed, was a magnificent success. So this year, would we see the tables turned? The fact is that the second edition of the World University Softball Championship was held in Chinese Taipei, more specifically Tainan. Things started out poorly for the organizers, who had to postpone the beginning of the competition. A tropical storm overran the area on the opening day, driving rains by bucket all over town and drenching the softball fields. To make up for this, the organizers spared no pains to prevent the bad weather from spoiling the meet for the delegations. They wanted at all costs to avoid having to reduce the number of games. So after waiting unsuccessfully for one day to let the fields dry out, they decided to move the competition 100 kilometers to the north, to Kaohsiung, a candidate city for the organization of the Universiade in 2011. It lent its magnificent stadium to the contestants, who could start the game on dry land in the bright sun. The opening match set the tone of the event, as the local team started off with a bang against the solid Australians, beginning the tournament handsomely and clearly announcing its ambition. Chinese Taipei quickly got the better of its opponent, that day winning the match by a score of 3-0. The other sensation came when the defending champions, Team USA, faced South Africa. The Americans outdid themselves, forgetting the fatigue from the trip, and stung their opponents with a mean 15-0. And they did it again the same day in their second game against Thailand, where the score was a one-sided 7-0. After that day in Kaohsiung, all the teams went back to Tainan, where the weather had cleared up. The championship continued as planned, in a stadium that had been magnificently renovated for the occasion. The two favorites lived up to the expectations from the outset, and they continued to clock in victories as the tournament went forward. Note that the USA plays against Chinese Taipei 3 times in this competition, once in the preliminary phase, second time for the qualifications, and finally in the finals. And it wasn't easy for the defending champion, far from it. At the first game, Chinese Taipei took the day. Based on a solid defense, the local team surprised everyone as it sent its opponent back to the locker rooms on a score 4-2. This was no accident. Chinese Taipei would do it again at the playoffs, qualifying directly for the finals and forcing the American team to best Japan in order to compete. This time, Team Chinese Taipei was totally in control of the game, showing a formidable fighting spirit, and of course, the audience loved it. So the Americans had to beat Japan to qualify for the finals, and they didn't have an easy time of it as the Japanese worked very hard. Japan came in third in 2004 and wanted to do better than simply taking the bronze medal. It took a tie-break to decide which team would qualify, and again, the Americans made the grade, so Japan for a second time went home in third place. On the wave of its successful games, Chinese Taipei was sure to win the final on home ground, particularly since the Americans had only had a 2-hour rest after their tough fight with the Japanese. And it almost came true. The local team took the advantage, but the Americans closed the gap every time. So again, a tie-break was played to decide who was the winner, and the Americans were not going to let a chance go by. The final result of this edition looked like a remake of the last championship: United States, Chinese Taipei, and Japan, then Australia, Thailand and South Africa, respectively in 4th, 5th and 6th. We want to congratulate the organizing committee for its hard work to give priority to the game and to the athletes' comfort.